Hello, is this Josh?
Yes, it is.
This is Chuck Burgi. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good, man. How's the connection?
It sounds great on my end.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, again, it's a complete honor to be able to talk to you. I mean, having you on my show to be with so many projects and albums and live shows and touring and everything that you've done, it's an honor to be able to talk to you and be able to help promote one of my favorite albums of 2017 so far from Tokyo Motor Fest.
Oh, well, thank you, man. It's a pleasure to be doing this, and it is a fun album, isn't it? I actually haven't sat and listened to it all the way through, but every once in a while I find one of these songs popping up on YouTube and give it a listen and go like, that's a really fun record. Steve did a great job. Producing and writing. I mean, he basically gave me what I thought was the album already done. And I kind of called him up and said, what is this? I mean, why do you need me? And we were able to cobble some better ideas and places together to give me an opportunity to participate in it. But a lot of the album, man, was just so cool. And he sent me over a demo, and I was just floored. It just sounded like a record, and I was pretty taken back. But I've been wanting to work with Steve for a long time on something original. When I first met him, we started. He needed a replacement in a Van Halen cover band he was doing called Unchained. And when I saw them, I thought they were the best cover band I had ever seen. For Van Halen, anyway, I don't think I'd ever seen one before, but I've seen other cover bands do other groups, and I thought they were excellent. And I was just knocked out. I was like, you really want me to play all that and remember how to play like that? And he was like, yeah. So it was a real challenge. I was playing with Billy, and we were actually off for what I thought might have been forever, and I was looking to start doing some more fun stuff. And Stevie Brown, man, one of my heroes.
Yeah, and I mean, the entire lineup is such an incredible display of what you guys can do. I mean, just the songwriting that Steve has, the vocals on the album are just impeccable, the melodic riffs that are going on, and I absolutely love what you're doing behind the kit.
Well, thank you, sir. A lot of it, like I said, a lot of it stemmed from getting really great demos and then sitting with Steve and playing in my ideas. I said, well, how about if I do, and this is the way to interrupt myself, this is the way it went. He gave me the demos and said, look, learn this stuff the way it went, but then, I want you to do your thing to it. And, I was initially pretty knocked out that, like, what am I going to do more than this? Because there were really some cool fills on the demos, and I stole a couple of them. I was like, dude, I can't think of a better fill for that part right there, so I'm just going to play what's on that. And he was like, okay. Other times, he was like, I don't like that fill. And I was like, well, how about this? Or how about that? And we sat and we would get together late mornings at his place and have a bunch of coffee because I was working late at night, and I think he was as well. We both have bills to pay, so we both have jobs. At the time, maybe I was working with Billy, but, we only played once every 2 weeks. So I work with another band called Big Shot, and they work substantially around the tri-state area. And there's two members of Billy's band in that band. So I would work at night and then wake up early and have one cup of coffee, put myself in the car, go over to Steve's, and then we'd sit around and start listening to the song, and I'd start playing ideas. And by the time I left, or a couple hours later, which was really all the time he could spare, because he was Mr. Mom, we'd be like, well, I think that's got some really cool parts. So he did his magic to it, made me sound like I can play in time. And we had a really fun time collaborating on the drum parts and deciding, what was a cool idea, what was too much. He was very funny in that, now I've never worked for Frontiers before, and or for anybody who has been on that label. I've got friends like Joe Lynn Turner that's on Frontiers, and I guess I believe Trickster has been on Frontiers, and so has Danger. But in any case, when I would be playing certain things, he'd look at me and go, "Two Foo Fighters, man, they're not going to go for it." Or too hip, too like fusion. It's got to be '80s, man. And he's like, you gotta remember what it was like being with Richie or what, And I was, oh, okay. So, more meat and potatoes, more, they throw in a couple of wacky fills that are pretty much the way I would play rock and roll right now. But a lot of it was to be not a throwback. That sounds demeaning, but it's like an homage. Like, don't take it too weird. Don't get too strange on this song. It is what it is. And so he helped rein my weirdness in, and also gave me a chance to play some really fun stuff on Done to Me. He was like, I kind of want a drum solo, and I was like, oh man, it's too like slow for a solo. He was like, well, what would you do? And I was like, I'd probably just play with the bass drums and do something fun in there. And he was like, okay, well, let me hear that. So we had a blast, man. I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but I've never worked on anything with Stevie where it's really from scratch, and also had a great, I guess, roadmap with his demos. So it was really, we just had a lot of fun, man. And again, the proof will be at some point we get to do some shows. So I'm really psyched because the guys in the band always love Ted on vocals, and Stevie's a great vocalist. Most people don't know that because I don't even think he sings all that much lead. Trickster, I think they got a singer, but he's a great lead singer. And the bass player, Greg Smith, one of my favorite people, one of my favorite bass players. He's got a great voice. So the band, just with the three of those guys singing, will be ridiculous live. And we're just kind of biding our time, waiting for an opportunity to start rehearsing, which I'm pretty sure we'll probably do. I'd love to do here at my house, and then we'll take it out and do some shows. But, until then, it's all talking with folks like you who actually have an interest in it, and seeing if we can't stir up some type of interest and awareness of this new project.
And it definitely deserves all the praise that it's gotten so far, and all future praise as well, because it does have that melodic throwback to the 80s, which is really needed in this time in 2017. I mean, what you're doing on the drums, capturing that 80s sound so perfectly. And it's funny when you were bringing up when you were going over drum parts, because I remember distinctively when I was talking to Steve that he said one of his favorite moments is you playing double bass on You're My Revolution.
Right. Yeah, well, it's funny because I think I heard some moments like that on his demo. I mean, it wasn't always incredibly clear what was being played, and oddly enough, when we finally got in the studio, I might be doing something, and I say, I'm going to go home and study this song. Let's do something else. Or I realized, and this is a mistake I have made in the past, is when I'm not 100% sure of what's on the demo, and a lot of times if I like something and somebody's giving me a demo and they want me to embellish on it or bring something better to it, I have to know what was there, to begin with. And very often I would sit with Steve and go like, you know what, I can't come up with anything that's cooler than what you wrote, so I'll play that right now. And if we get a chance to revisit it, and sometimes we did, I go like, you know what, that beat part, let's go to that beat part in the song, punch me in, I want to play this idea for you. But he let me play some double bass, which, certainly in today's music, there's so many absolutely fast and crazy bands. And it was something that I never got a chance to really do a lot in the 80s on record. I did a couple of albums, one with Blue Oyster Cult in the 90s, late 90s, which I actually got a chance to play some double bass in. But, most of the rock and roll I played was kind of more pocket stuff, especially the stuff I did with Richie in the studio was very much just get through this song, and it wasn't as creative a situation as I would have liked. Once we went live, he let me play whatever I wanted to, which was really fun. But a lot of times if I was emulating a song that had already been recorded, I had to pretty much play it with a vibe like the record. But Steve let me throw in some double bass on this album, and I thought the music needed it. I thought they could have it, and he was open to it. I mean, it certainly didn't need it. I put it in places where it wasn't necessarily demoed up, but he was like, "Yeah, that's cool." And "You're My Revolution" is one of my favorite songs because it's got that aggressive type of rock and roll. It's not mid-tempo. I'm a huge fan of Slipknot and a couple other of the younger, I guess they're like dark goth rock bands like Motionless and White. These are bands that have taken what I think are the best of groups like Breaking Benjamin and thrown some thrash in, and it's really fun music. And I thought, if I could just throw a little bit of this in or that in, and Steve let it happen and let it go, it might make it, modern's not really even a good word, but just kind of give it some pizzazz. And that's what we were trying to go for. I think he was looking for me to bring some pizzazz because he's,
Oh yeah, and I was just gonna say, like, that beginning, I mean, that opening drum fill going into just that double bass driven beats, I mean, it just makes an already great song even better. I mean, just giving it a little more variety on the album, which there's plenty of variety on the album, but it's nice to hear you getting to play out just a little bit more than just the meat and potatoes area.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that, and I attribute all of that to Steve encouraging me and letting me suggest a few things. And of course, that song was so aggressive. As the demo is not all that much different. I just ended up throwing in some stuff that went with the guitar lines and pushed it a little bit harder. I don't believe he had the bass drums running through some of the parts that he let me play in for the record. But getting back to Steve, these songs were all imaged so beautifully before I even started to learn them. I was absolutely blown away by the quality and the work, the detail he had already put into these songs. And I was really concerned before hearing Ted sing because Steve sang all the original reference vocals, and he did such a good job. When I first heard it, I was like, "Well, dude, who's singing lead?" He was like, "That's me." And I was like, "Well, aren't you going to do this on the record?" He's like, No, we got Ted Poley's going to be singing this stuff." And I was like, "Well, cool, but okay." You could have sung them all, but it was a project, I think, born out of the fact that the president of Frontiers loves Ted's voice, and I think Danger were kind of I don't know about splitting up. I don't know anything about them and their business with Frontiers, but they were having problems, and I think the head of Frontiers was looking to just get another TED project as well out there this year, and it just ended up coinciding with Steve being free and Steve having a whole album of incredible music to use. So we're fortunate.
So with that, when you finally got to hear Ted's take on the songs, how did you feel about the songs after?
Oh, I thought they were even better. Ted's got a very distinctive voice and a very soulful voice, and his own sound. The way the songs were sung by Steve is like one world, and then when Ted sang his stuff, and of course Steve fashioned a sound where there are two voices singing harmony a lot, and so it's not just Ted's voice that's, I guess, carrying the songs. There's a lot of Steve singing along with him harmonies, and their combination of voices was was even better than Steve singing with himself. So I was thrilled to no end, and I just, many times I've done things that never saw the light of day or got a shot in the arena of our world's music. And I got my fingers and toes crossed that enough people will hear this and love it, and that, it will give us an opportunity to really become the band that we are on record.
Yeah, and I'm definitely hoping for that as well. Like I mentioned earlier, there is such a calling for this style right now in 2017. I mean, it's so fun, it's so melodic, there's so many great hooks. Everyone in the band is just doing so well with the material, and I just imagine that the more that you guys are able to work together and more future releases and the live shows, that you guys will just get even stronger from here.
It will be an amazing band. It's funny, we've all been playing music for so long together in that, what I mean to say is we've been playing music as individuals. Coming together on the record just felt so perfect. I wasn't ever in the room with anybody but, Steve. But I hadn't even met Ted, but I've worked with Greg and been in the studio with him and been on some of the coolest stages and shows with him. And when he told me, Greg's going to be playing on this, I was like, this is going to... so I'm busy there playing my drums, imaging Smithy in the room with me, cutting these tracks. So the cool thing is that, we're all friends and have known of each other's work. And when he told me Ted be singing, I'm busy playing these songs and I'm hearing Ted there and I'm imaging Ted in the room. So, for me to do a good performance in the studio requires a little imagination, and kind of require with the intensity. I think you need to find, requires for me, imaging that I'm actually performing that in front of people in the studio. And to me, that's how I get to hit as hard as I can, to get some performances that I can listen back and go, man, I can live with that. And because even though we haven't been a band, we're all friends and we all know what each other do. And some of us, like Steve, whom I've played with in the Van Halen cover band briefly, and Greg Smith, who I've played so much with, not only in the studio but live as well. It's just a perfect fit of people that make great rock and roll together. And we just need the opportunity to actually do it live for other people. For ourselves, it was really easy and really fun. So that's kind of what I'm waiting to have happen.
Knowing that would hopefully be happening in the future, where you guys are going to be able to start playing shows, have you guys talked about what you would be wanting to play live? I mean, obviously playing Tokyo Motor Fist, but would you guys be playing anything else that goes along with it?
Actually, that's funny you mentioned that, because I thought the last time Steve and I got together it was really fun. He had said, we've all been a part of big bands as members and as contributing musicians, and he was like, why shouldn't we, and why could we, or why wouldn't we? I can't say it. I can't speak all this well today. Why can't we do songs that you've been involved in, that Greg's been involved in? For instance, he was suggesting, why don't we do a couple of Rainbow songs? Why don't we, and I was like, well, that's cool. Greg and I were with Richie for one long year and a half, and I was also on a couple of albums, 12 years before that. So he was like, yeah, we'll pick the best of songs that we've all participated in, and throw them into the hat of songs that Tokyo Motor Fist would perform. So I thought that was a very cool idea, and we actually haven't had a band meeting about any of this. We all talk from time to time about, what could we do, on top of the songs that are on the record. We've all been a part of of songs and artists that have a pretty great track record. So if we could excerpt from a couple of different projects, make them our own, I think it would be a very unique and fun set to play. So, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So when you're thinking about that more, I mean, what personally would you like to be able to play in Tokyo Motor Fest live?
That's a really good question. Stevie's played with Def Leppard. And over the last 2 years, done a lot of work with them, subbing for Vivian. And I think it'd be fun to do a Def Leppard song. I also think because he's played with Joe Lynn Turner for a couple of years, and Joe, in his set, not only does Joe Lynn Turner stuff, but he does some Purple, and he does some Rainbow, and he does, I believe, one or two, like cover songs, like R&B songs. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting. I think we could borrow from a bunch of different bands, and I haven't a definite idea about what we could do, because to me the sky's kind of the limit. We could do a Van Halen song. I mean, it'd be a cover, but Steve plays Eddie Van Halen like nobody else I know. I would pick one of their more obscure songs, or something off the new record, which I don't think got as much airplay and isn't as well known as their older stuff. I don't know. I think that's a great question, and it's really interesting to contemplate what we could throw into the mix. Yeah, I don't know. I think when we start revving up for this, we will probably send each other what if MP3s, what if we did this? What do you think about this? And when the gates are open, man, who knows what's going to come out, from everybody's idea of not only artists they've worked with, but who knows? I mean, Greg's been with Ted Nugent live for the last 8 or 9 years. I could see us doing a Nugent song. And maybe one of the songs that Ted lets Greg sing live. So he would trade off with Ted, Ted Poley. I mean, I think the sky's the limit as far as the bands we've worked with. Steve even said, let's do a metal version of a Billy song. So, I don't know how far that would go or get, but I've been lucky to play with some very, very great bands and very great artists. I would certainly throw one or two Blue Oyster Cult songs into the mix, especially if it was one of the ones that I recorded on Heaven Forbid, or was actually really one of their bigger and better known songs that the other guys wanted to do. Who knows? I mean, it's crazy, and that's a really great question that I don't have an answer for. It's just too open. But I could see doing I could see doing Cat Scratch Fever, or I could see doing Spotlight Kid, or Hush. God, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's pretty funny, and I think we conceivably might even throw in songs that none of us have ever been a part of, but that we all might agree on is a great song to cover. Like, I don't know, like an R&B song. Changes, or Superstition by Stevie Wonder, or I don't know. I don't know. Certainly, now that the album's out and people are hearing it, we're going to start having a dialogue about what if and when. I know I haven't even thought that far. I've been trying to get a new monitor system together for rehearsing here at my house. So, because I think I've got a pretty centralized spot. I'm only 20 minutes from Steve, and the other guys. I know Greg lives in Pennsylvania, and I think Ted might also. But I've got a really great place here to rehearse. So I bought a new monitor system, a Behringer monitor system that is really easy to use and really small, and I'd like to be able to break it in with the quartet. So that's what I've been thinking of as the technical aspects lately, but that you've just brought up a great set of questions, and one I don't have answers for.
Well, if nothing else, at least I'm inspiring you just a little bit to think about those things that are coming up in the future.
Oh, it's a serious inspiration because, certainly I don't think we would play everything right off the album because people, some of the things are more album tracks, and unless we got known, I don't think we would really be wanting to go for an energetic performance. And some of the songs are more ballady. We probably not in a first set. I mean, if we're an opening band, we're going to be lucky to play for 40 minutes for some people. So we would want it to be ultimate impact. And we might not even do a ballad in situations like that. Situations where we could actually sell a show as ourselves. We're going to need to be able to pad it out because I think there's only 10 or 11 songs on the record. That's not enough for a show. So I like Steve's idea about doing songs from each of the bands we've been a part of. I think that'd be really fun. And I know Jolyn Turner's done that and been really successful at doing that. And gotten a great audience and great response in Europe, which is where this music, I think, might make its strongest impact initially, because just rock and roll in America, man, it's pretty sad, I think. You got the newer bands, or even you got a couple of bands like Slipknot who can go out and headline arenas and even stadiums at times in America. But the bands that are trying to gain that type of visibility are having to go out in 3 and 4 groups of bands at a time and try and sell an arena or even a small theater. So it's a tough business, man, and I know all of us are just kind of holding our breath, hoping for the opportunity to really become a live group. That won't be difficult at all with the talent involved. It's just how soon will the opportunity come up for us to have to get together and start rehearsing. And in the meantime, you've brought up a great bunch of questions, and ones that I don't have the answers exactly for yet. But I've already talked about that with Steve, and we've thrown around a bunch of bands that we've been with and songs from those groups. So that would probably be the way we would start. So
yeah, that's a great approach, and I'm really hoping. I mean, when the schedule's aligned and all the dates that can line up, just like getting on those nice big European festivals where rock really gets exposed to the right areas, and getting the right festivals here, just so you get people get the idea of what you guys are doing, and then being able to maybe start doing some mini touring or full-fledged touring at some point, and just bringing that spirit alive.
Boy, I would love that myself, and I know everybody else would as well. I'm hoping Greg gets a chance to go out with Ted again this summer. I don't know if they're doing that. I'm really blessed. I've got a pretty full plate for this summer with Billy, and then we start to taper off in the fall. So I would love to see the band be able to rehearse around the holidays and shoot for trying to do some real gigs spring into summer of next year. I think that's probably the most reasonable and rational way to think about it. A product by any group, especially a brand new one, it takes I think usually 8 months to a year to get heard by enough people for them to maybe make up their mind and think they want to go see it, and or that they're fans and that they like it. So in that time, we won't know really what's going to be going on until the beginning of next year. But I know Steve's already talking to people, and I think he's got a bunch of good folks in place. I know I've got a couple of booking agents that really could help the band get into the right venues. It's just, is there the demand? And I think that's pretty much what we're waiting to see, how that evolves. Being a band with those guys, it's second nature. It's something we all do really easily, really well. We all love hanging together. And I know everybody's just chomping at the bit, like, God, can't we do this sooner? But I think we're going to have to wait and let it take its course and see if we get some type of response anywhere. I don't care, Romania, Yugoslavia, Croatia. We could go over and do a week of work, or parlay it into several weeks sometime next summer. It'd be really awesome.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm definitely hoping for that as well, because the music absolutely calls for it in a live setting. And it really shows a lot of power of what all of you guys are capable of, and you in particular, with how many different styles that you're able to accomplish. I mean, everything from Rainbow to Blue Oyster Cult to Billy Joel to Tokyo Motor Fist. I mean, it's great to see that kind of adaptation behind the drums.
Well, thank you, man. It's funny, I've gotten some emails from people. I just got one today from a guy in France whose father was a fan of me when I played with Rainbow in the 80s. And this kid is a drummer, and it was just interesting to realize that there are older folks, people who are parents. I don't have any kids, so I tend to feel, without looking in the mirror, I tend to feel like blessed to still be 18 or 20 years old. But it's wacky to see that there are people that were fans of bands I was in 30 years ago, and they've had kids and raised those kids on that same music. So now the kids are, I love that style, and I just got this thing from a guy who said, I just bought Tokyo Motor Fist in France, and I love the band and want to see you live. And it's just, well, I don't remember how to spell the guy's name. It was not a normal name from France, but I had to reply to him, tell him thank you for being a drummer and a fan, and try and start a fan club over there so that we actually have a reason to become a group in reality. I mean, we already are. You've heard the record, and that's, to me, just the tip of the iceberg that the four of us would be live. And one of the things I talked to the guy about, he was asking me, what would you suggest to me as a drummer who's fairly young in the business? And I would say, try and be versatile. Try and learn a little bit of all these different styles. And I know that it has really benefited me immensely to get a handle on two reggae grooves, two funk grooves, some metal grooves, some jazz grooves, because as my career has fortunately gone on, and it's been a pretty good long time, I think the reason why I've been able to be versatile is that I can reinvent myself for different bosses and different styles of music. It's because I did look into and did get interested in, I want to know this type of thing at least well enough to emulate a style. And one of the things I regret, I was never a member of any one band long enough to feel like I had really exhausted or really found who I could be. And it turns out that I've ended up having to be a bunch of different guys, which has been okay. I used to want to be just in a band, and it turns out I've been in a lot of bands, and I'm still in a couple of bands. So that's just the way it is at this point. Some of them play a piano-driven music, like the Billy, and other bands like Tokyo Motor Fist are totally guitar-driven, and I've loved them all. There was a point in my life where I thought I needed to listen to Elton John, and I listened to early Billy, and I was dying to be in a guitar-driven band, but in my spare time, I thought, if I just do that and I just play metal or I just play hard rock, I might not, I might be overlooking stylistically things to learn, and a type of music to play that's like piano-driven, although I never thought I'd be in a piano band or a piano-driven band. And so here I am all these years later in Billy's group, which is truly one of the finest bands, as well as he's certainly the most intense piano player, singer I've ever worked with. So we have our own special surprise for anybody that hasn't seen this band live when I play with Billy. But I'm chomping at the bit to play in a guitar-driven band again, like Tokyo Motor Fist. So I can and to play with my peeps. These guys are, some of the funnest, coolest, most laid back and talented people I've ever known. And it's just kind of surreal that we've got this great album that's floating around the world and in the airwaves, and we haven't been able to actually all play that music in the same room. But it's a good problem to have.
Oh, yes. And again, just going back into that versatility, it's so great to be able to have those different outlets, and you are very fortunate to have not polar opposite ones, but just like going from Billy Joel to Tokyo Motor Fist right there. It's good to be able to have both of those outlets, especially if you enjoy both music, because you never want to be playing a show one time with Billy and you accidentally start playing double bass and blast beats over the wrong song or something. And
well, I've done plenty of that, and I've actually been really adamant to throw a little double bass in, as I do with Billy. The sound man has finally allowed me to. He's helped me kind of like rear in the stuff I wanted to bring to Billy's show, and made me realize, that what he's trying to do live, it's like none of it was ever broken. Billy's best songs and stuff, I think, are all classic, and they're classic because performances are great. So I'm not reinventing the wheel with Billy. He's open enough, and so's his sound man and the people that he's had in his entourage for like 40 years. They're all open to it not necessarily being in a museum. In other words, we're not just playing his stuff the way it originally was imaged, but we're all able to bring a little bit of our own personalities and the way we interpret those songs to the mix. But it's funny, when I started playing Billy's music, it was to become familiar enough with it so that I could be a part of his Broadway show, which is how I met him. And it was the only show I've ever been on in Broadway, on Broadway, and that was Moving Out. But when we got the opportunity to put the band together, it was put together by Billy's lead guitarist and MD, Tommy Burns, and he said, learn these songs now and learn them like, know them, own them, and then we're going to go and play for these producers and for Twyla, who was the other judge of what we were going to be doing, and so I really dug into the Billy stuff, and it gave me a whole nother appreciation for his music, for Liberty as a drummer, and I really hadn't paid that much attention to it until I started to have to dig into it to be really strong with it for Moving Out. And in the course of Moving Out, I realized that whenever I played some of Billy's songs, I always imagine him on guitar on the songs, like Allentown. Allentown to me was always like an Eddie Van Halen riff, and so to this day when I play it with him, I'm imaging, I don't have to image it, but when I was doing it on Broadway, I had never played it with Billy, and I was just thinking, some of these songs feel like I want to be playing them with a guitar player who can fret all those songs. And now I am. Billy's guitarist, Tommy, is incredible. And I'm not really saying this well. I never thought I would be in a guitar band. A keyboard band that is as thrilling as Billy's is, that lets me play like I'm in a guitar-driven band because he plays keys so intensely. I think that's what I was trying to say. He's an incredible performer. He's an incredible piano player, and he's the most intense guy I've ever played with. The man just gives 1,000,000% every time I get up on stage with him, and it's an amazing opportunity and challenge to be as just freaking good as I can be every time I play with this guy. We're actually flying out on Thursday to Lincoln, Nebraska, to do a show at the arena out there. And the highlight of my life at this point is the Billy shows, just because of the the spectacle and the massive size of what we do. We're also going to be going to most of the major baseball stadiums this summer again. We're going back for the fourth time to Wrigley Field in Chicago, Fenway Park in Boston. We're playing some new venues. We're actually playing Dodgers Stadium in Los Angeles. That's going to be in May. And it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy that he and the band are selling out these stadiums year after year with no new material. So, doing this stuff keeps me on my feet and keeps me having to work really hard. And I'd like to be able to parlay more of that hard work into Tokyo Motor Fest at some point. So, and meanwhile, all of us are doing whatever we have to do to pay the bills. I don't have kids, but I got a house up in the Jersey mountains, and everybody's got to do what they got to do. I know Steve works with a couple of bands, and I'm getting to the point where I'd like to be able to produce out of my house. And so I've been working on my studio. And then when I'm not doing that, I'm trying to beat the drums and stay in shape enough to do it for all the different artists that I've been working with. I, up until recently, was working with a band called Shotgun Wedding that I had done their first album with, and that was totally different. It was kind of like a city country band, a lot of train beats and a lot of cool guitar picking and piano playing. But yeah, man, it's I'm very grateful to be still employed and on the level that I am, and I just want every other project to be half as successful as someone like Billy is at this point, because it's a thrill, and it's what everybody dreams about doing, going out and playing on a big stage with great lights and great sound. And I know all of us have done it with other artists, and we're all just chomping at the bit to do it together in our own band. I can't imagine how much fun that would be.
Oh, absolutely. Well, again, thank you so very much for taking all this time with your busy schedule going on. I mean, with all the production work you're doing, with all the great musicians that you're able to play with, all the promotion that you're doing. It's an honor that you took this much time to talk to me about everything that you got going on, and of course promoting the brand new album, the debut album from Tokyo Motor Fest, which is out now through Frontiers. And anyone checking this out, I mean, whether they're a fan of Billy or they're checking out something from Rainbow or Blue Oyster Cult, I really hope that they'll check out this album if they're not already familiar with it, because anyone who enjoys this style of melodic rock, I think they're really going to enjoy what's done from you guys.
Thank you, Josh. I feel the same way. I've been lucky in my life to be a part of some really good melodic rock, I think is the way you're kind of phrasing it. To me, Rainbow, even Meatloaf, Blue Oyster Cult, some of those bands and Joel Turner made great melodic hard rock, and I think this is a really viable, really cool twist on that type of music, which having been a part of it, it's in my bones. And you need good lyrics, you need a good vibe, you need great melody, and I believe that this band and the material that Steve wrote has some really cool stuff to offer the planet. And I, like yourself, can only hope that people that were fans of any of us individually and any of the bands that we've been a part of will check it out and enjoy it as well. I have seen it getting some really rave reviews by some of the, I guess, online people that make it a business to review artists. And I've also seen a lot of just people chiming in on YouTube going, hey, I love this stuff. So if enough people do that, this amazing group of people can actually hopefully start performing live. And it would be one of my dreams this year to see that actually become a reality. So thank you for being a part of this and helping the band reach what I hope is a large audience, certainly large enough to get us to be the band live that we are on record. So.
Oh, well, absolutely. And again, again, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this. It's been a tremendous honor to be able to cover everything that you got going on, and I love the album so much, so it's an absolute joy to be able to talk to you and Steve to be able to promote this album that definitely deserves all the praise that it's getting, and I really hope that does happen with possible touring in the near future and just getting that praise and joy out there because it's really needed.
Thank you, Josh. I really I appreciate having the opportunity to talk with you, and got both fingers and toes crossed that we're going to be able to be the band that you're listening to and be able to bring it to people's places of, of entertainment. So here's hoping.